So we're joined with Carl Jha. Carl Jha is host of Silk and Steel podcast, focused on China and surrounding regions and their history, culture, and politics. You can follow Carl on Twitter at Carl Jha. You can follow his podcast on Twitter at Steel Silk In, and you can subscribe and support the podcast on patreon.com/silk and steel. All right, Carl. I guess the first question, or the first thing is Xi Jinping is in China. And I guess the question becomes, and I have two questions on this. One, why is Xi Jinping in China? Like, why now? Everybody else.
North Korea. You mean North Korea? Do you mean Xi Jinping
North Korea.
North Korea?
North Korea. Yeah. Everybody else went to kiss the ring in China. Why is Xi Jinping making the trip to North Korea, and why now?
It's a big public gesture because it's been a while since the top Chinese leader visited Pyongyang. Kim Jong-un has traveled to China before, but this is the first time in a long time a top Chinese leader visiting Pyongyang, and there's a couple of reasons for that. It's actually not a secret that initially China was not happy with North Korea with its nuclear testing and missile testing, at least before 2016. 2016 date is very important because before that, China sees what North Korea is doing is providing an excuse for Americans and to a certain extent Japanese to rearm and militarize East Asia. For example, when United States deployed the THAAD missile system, the high altitude missile defense system to South Korea in 2016, the ostensible reason they given was to intercept incoming North Korean missile barrages, which is completely bullshit because North Korea do not need ballistic missiles to hit Seoul. They could just use artillery. They do have artillery that can reach Seoul because Seoul is not that far from the DMZ, the demilitarized zone. And the THAAD system was aimed squarely at China, and China understood that. That's why when 2016 happened, when the THAAD system got deployed in South Korea, this China-South Korean relationship took a nosedive. China slapped a lot of sanctions on South Korean companies, and the relationship is only slowly recovering today. After United States dismantle the THAAD system they put in South Korea to deploy to Middle East because their THAAD system over there was being destroyed by Iranian missiles. So that's why for the longest time, China's strategy was like they did not want to openly have a hostile relationship with United States, and they thought what North Korea was doing, which is having nuclear testing and missile testing, is complicating this relationship by first of all, China also do not want to see nuclear proliferation because China itself being part of the nuclear club. None of the nuclear club member want other people to get nukes. Let's make that clear. So China didn't want to see North Korea to get nukes, but when North Korea did get nukes, China's like kind of reluctant acceptance. But on the other hand, you also see that as an opportunity for United States to step up its militarization in East Asia. But something happened after 2016 and 2017 is when United States became more overt in its containment with China. Like United States no longer need an excuse to do containment of China. Before they always use North Korea as an excuse. Okay, this is why we have to put our military hardware in the Korean Peninsula because the North Korean threat. This is why we need to have a trilateral alliance with South Korea and Japan because of North Korean missile threat. But after 2016, after Trump's election, like Trump just made it overt. Like, yeah, we're going to go after China. We're going to contain China. So in that instance, it doesn't really matter what North Korea does anymore. In fact, that China no longer see what North Korea is doing is detrimental to its own relationship with the United States. And this is why now China, and an additional reason some people speculating is because North Korea and Russia is getting moving a lot closer because North Korea actually sends soldiers to fight in the war. Just to make it clear, they did not send North Korean soldier into Ukraine to fight. They sent North Korean soldier to Russia to fight because Russia and North Korea had a mutual defense treaty, and Ukraine did launch an incursion into Russian territory in Kursk. That's where the North Korean soldiers fought. So because of that, Russia has been doing some technological transfer to North Korea. Actually, there's a Wall Street Journal article that just came out today that says the best performing Asian economy is North Korea.
I saw that.
I
didn't even know what to think of that.
And the reason he gave it was because the arms sales to Russia and also more help from China. And that's this is why Xi Jinping is going, because now China do not have to please United States to kind of put North Korea in a corner. Now, let's remember, for the longest time, China was complying with the UN sanction on North Korea, but at least on paper, there's still a lot of trucks that's traveling between the two countries. North Korea, they get a lot of their energy from China, and right now the because the Sino-American relationship have changed. United States no longer pretending it's still trying to have China as a frenemy relationship, but sees China as an overt enemy. And on the other hand, China is not afraid to openly push back against the United States anymore, as we saw during the tariff war. So there's no reason to kind of put North Korea, try to hide North Korea in the closet and pretend we don't have anything to do with that little brother over there. So at this point, this is why Xi Jinping is now visiting North Korea, giving North Korean leader Kim Jong-un an open boost. So I hope that makes sense.
It does make sense. It's the girl with the skinny legs. I'm owning her now. I'm not saying she's not mine. It's the girl with the skinny legs is mine. So fair enough. I accept that. You pointed out that the U.S. and the way that it's engaging China, obviously sending Hegseth to Shangri-La, effectively trying to get Philippines and Taiwan on board, is a threat, especially with Japanese provocation. I mean, it's kind of like Germany, right, where the U.S. has been using these guys as proxies. The open hostility that the U.S. has been using to go after allies of China, that doesn't, let's say, motivate China to contest this more openly. And I'm asking this question because a lot of people would ask this in the channel.
So this is how China acts. Let me. China usually they will still avoid direct confrontation with the United States because China and United States are both nuclear powers. But China would not hesitate to slap down any client state or vassal state of the United States. There's a saying in Chinese, 打狗要看主人. When you want to beat a dog, you need to look up to who's the dog's master is. But in this case, China is going to beat down the dogs, and that means the Philippines and Japan. China has no problem doing that, because we saw that when United States put the THAAD system initially in South Korea in 2016. Did China apply sanction against the United States? No. China applied sanction against South Korea, because this shows it's a way, it's kind of power move. Say, okay, look, you think United States is going to protect you? Look at what I'm going to do.
Not so much.
And that's what China is going to do to the Philippines. I mean, they're going to make an example out of the Philippines and to show them, look, Uncle Sam ain't gonna protect you, man. We are gonna do what we want, and there's nothing you or Uncle Sam can do anything about it. But they will not do it directly, say, against the U.S. 7th Fleet, if that makes sense. This is why China is already in rhetoric. They have already been ratcheted up a couple of notches against Japan and the Philippines, because Japan and Philippines recently concluded, they're trying to conclude a maritime a boundary agreement. And You're like, Japan and Philippines, do they even border each other? There's a big ass island called Taiwan that sits in between. What do you mean, Philippines and Japan maritime border agreement? This is why China is raising the issue, and so that's gonna be, you're gonna see more Chinese Coast Guard entering contested areas, both with the Philippines and Japan, and so this is how China applied pressure. When the relationship was good, China will say, okay, let's put the dispute on a shelf. Let's shelf their dispute. Let's focus on area of cooperation. And when relationships are bad, okay, we're sending in the Coast Guard to water hose your people. We're gonna water cannon your people. To make an example out of you. So that's what's gonna happen.
I guess my thought is, for example, going after Venezuela, going after Panama, going after, in this case, I guess you could say, trying to do this kind of deal between the Philippines and Japan, where China has now put more, as you point out, an administrative action, I think it's called. Like, basically, they're sitting on their Coast Guard to patrol the areas that these guys are claiming as part of their area of influence. I guess my thing is, like, and even the going after Russia, for example, or going after Iran, all of these countries are either allies or in close association with China. It seems that the US is trying to wrap up conflicts all around the world in order to isolate China. That's what it seems like. Or is that not the way China views it?
Well, I mean, sure. China always, like, people. I don't know why people think that Chinese leadership are stupid. Chinese leaders know that United States aim ultimately it would be regime change in China or containment of China. Like they understood that since 1989, the Tiananmen Square protest. I mean, that has been like openly talked about among like internal party meetings. Xi Jinping have openly warned against following the path of Soviet Union into its collapse. So China studied the example of Soviet collapse for several decades just to avoid the same fate. So yeah, China understand how the game is played, but again, like, this doesn't mean U.S. can do this, do all these things, but China don't play in the same game. China's game continually is to build up China's own strength, to the point where it's impenetrable. Like this is China's game is like, you fight your wars, we'll fight ours. We will fight on in our area of our strength, and we will continue gather strength until we're unstoppable. So that's a China's long-term game.
That's what they view it. Yeah, I understand. I do get that. And on some level, the world benefits from that because we're not in a nuclear war right now. By the way, I feel this way, and I know Americans will be shocked to hear this. Putin, Xi Jinping, and I guess you said the new foreign minister from the standpoint of Iran, or let's say the supreme leader, are in part the reason why we still exist. Because I think if it was a lot of other people, they would have hit Europe by now. China would have been in a much larger conflict from the standpoint of the US. And Iran obviously would be, well, they're already at a war. Meaning it's their pragmatism that has kept us safe and alive, or kept us alive, I should say. Because we would
strategic constraint. I mean, strategic restraint. Restraint that was being practiced by these countries.
Yeah. I'm curious on something else. From the standpoint of Kim Jong-un, the relationship between North Korea and China, as you point out, has been complicated. From here on out, though, especially with the relationship between North Korea and the Russians, is China in any way, I don't want to say bothered, but how do they view that relationship, considering that relationship, as you point out, has deepened even to the point of war?
Well, so first of all, people need to understand something, right? People try to apply the relationship United States have its client state to other great powers. China and North Korea are not, the client state master relationship. North Korea is actually a sovereign country by the fact that there's no Chinese troops stationed in North Korea. Chinese troops pull out of North Korea a couple of years after Korean War ended. American troops, however, are still in South Korea. That is a difference. That is a big difference. South Korea is still militarily occupied by America, whereas North Korea is for North Koreans. So North Korea, they retain their sovereignty. They have always been a sovereign country. They're nobody's vassal or client state. China do not get to tell North Korea what to do. Right? I mean, they're fellow communist countries, sure, but China is no way even a big brother to North Korea. Like, that's not the same relationship. So China came in to North Korea. They made sure repel the U.S. attack, push American from Yalu River back to Seoul, and then China left. And that is the relationship with China and North Korea. I mean, there are several. Even the two countries still have some tensions. For example, during China's Cultural Revolution, at that time, there will be Korean broadcasts coming in from China in North Korea to criticize Chinese policies during that time, and that was also the time, because of the Cultural Revolution in China. There's some production issue in China, so China halted the shipment of coal to North Korea. So North Korea depend on thermal coal shipment from China to sustain their industries. And so when that shipment got interrupted, there was a little bit of tension back then. So China-North Korean relationship is not how it was portrayed in the Western media. Again, North Korean, they can make their own decisions on what to do. I already talked about the nuclear issue. It was not China's wish to see North Korea going nuclear, but that was a sovereign decision made by North Korea, because they saw what happened to Gaddafi. They saw what happened to Saddam. They did go nuclear. Yeah, and so there is that. Is there a competition between China and Russia in North Korea? Well, I don't know. I mean, what's there to compete about? I mean, what's there to compete about? It's not like North Korea is not a prize. Again, I mean, when I say not a prize, I'm talking about North Korea. It's not someone's little patron or client to be fought over. Right, because North Korea, they make their own decisions. They have always been independent-minded. Their whole Juche ideology in North Korea is self-reliance, stretching on self-reliance. So let's establish that North Korea is. But what's China's interest in North Korea? China's interest in North Korea is China's interest in most of its other peripheral border states. It wants to see peace and stability. Right, because if North Korea get destabilized, there's going to be millions of refugees coming across the border to China. Right. China did not want that happen. I mean, when North Korea was had experienced famine in the early 1990s as a result of the collapse of Soviet Union and the collapse of the Korean-Soviet trade, there were a lot of refugees coming across the border into China. So China do not want to see something like that happen. China do not want to see North Korean government collapse. They do not want to see a regime change or a societal collapse of North Korea. So that's China's interest. China wants North Korea to be stable, to be functional, and on friendly terms. So those are China's interests in North Korea.
Last question is what is called an economic zone that the Philippines and Taipei, we hit it slightly, but I kind of want to hit this because China is effectively, it's very strange. Taipei never came out and said anything like, well, wait a minute, you're crossing our waters. China comes out and says, how on earth are you trying to create an economic zone that doesn't include Beijing, despite the fact that you guys are, right? You're crossing to our waters, into our space.
Yeah, I mean, China's like, look, how can you Philippines and Japan work out a maritime boundary issues when there's a freaking big ass island of Taiwan sitting in between you? Like,
Yes.
what do you mean you can carve this out? Well, Taiwan is keep its mouth shut because it still hope to count on Japan to come, like Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takeichi said, that Japan will militarily intervene in a Taiwan contingency. So government in Taiwan do not want to offend Japan, which they see as their big brother. So that's why they're keeping their mouth shut. But this whole move between Japan and Philippines is designed to create tension with China, because Japan, they're on a path to militarization because the Sanai Takaichi, she is a right wing in a right-wing government. Like, her party LDP is already right-wing, but she is the right-wing faction of the LDP, and her goal has always been to quote-unquote make Japan a normal country, by which it means get rid of the Article 9 of the Peace Constitution, which said Japan cannot have a military. She wants Japan to have a full-on military so Japan can be quote-unquote normal. And what's better way to do that by playing up the threat from China and North Korea? And on the other hand, Japan's economy is also hitting some severe bumps. And Japanese yen had depreciated so much now. Now Japan became a cheap place to travel if you're a holder of American dollars. And now for Sanai Takaichi, it's like, okay, maybe we can no longer compete in the car industry because the Chinese EVs have been kicking our ass, but maybe we can redirect everything into building tanks. That will boost the economy, at least in short term. That was Hitler's strategy before World War II. He redirected a lot of resources into militarization. That did boost up the GDP went up, the GDP number went up, employment went up. Everybody was employed, but like at some point you have to figure out, okay, now how do we pay the loans? Well, Hitler's answer is, we don't have to pay the loans if we just invade the people that we owe money to. But I don't know what Japan's long-term game is, but their short-term is, okay, we'll do this Keynesian economics through militarism. And this is why they're picking a fight with China. But the Philippines is an interesting problem, because Philippines, they have a lot. They're facing a lot of problems right now because the Philippines is heavily dependent on energy imports. And because of this closure of Strait of Hormuz, the prices are rising for everybody. Right. So the Philippine economy is suffering. But again, maybe this is, and also the Philippine internally, their politics is, there's basically a civil war going on in the Philippine Senate because the Philippine president, Bongbong Marcos, is trying to impeach his vice president, who is the daughter of Duterte, who is the daughter of Rodrigo Duterte.
The former president.
Yes. So the president is trying to impeach the vice president, and then that led recently to a literal gunfight in the Filipino Senate between the two factions.
Are you serious?
And so, yes. You don't hear about this because
we didn't hear about
the narrative. It does not fit the U.S. narrative about protecting the nice, plucky democracy of the Philippines, right? But because of these problems, Marcos this is how he creates distraction from his domestic problems by creating this diplomatic crisis with China. And then the public can say, oh my God, the big bad China. They forget about economic problems. They forget that they literally just had a gunfight in the Filipino Senate. Well, I mean, that's his gambit anyway. I don't know if people can really forget the economic hardship they're going through right now, or the fact that the Filipino politics is quite dysfunctional at the moment. Now you are surprised. You are surprised that you hear this first time from me because the U.S. media doesn't gain anything by promoting the fact that Philippines is this failed state, with a dysfunctional politics that's been propped up by United States as its proxy to pick a fight with China. Because it just these extraneous factors not help with the narrative, so they just kind of ignore it.
Carl, that's astonishing. I just looked it up, and come fight in the
Philippines. The same reason you don't hear about big protests in Taiwan against the government that happened last year, because again, that doesn't fit with the narrative with the plucky democracy of Taiwan needs to be defended by United States blood and treasure from big bad China. But why are these people? Anyway.
Well, no, that's mind blowing. I'm just saying that's mind blowing. Carl Jha, my man, thank you for this, Carl. You always have my appreciation. Carl Jha, he's host of Silk and Steel podcast, focused on China and surrounding regions and their history, culture, and politics. You can follow Carl on Twitter at Carl Jha. You can follow his podcasts on Twitter at Steel Silk, the letter N. You can subscribe and support the podcast on patreon.com/Silk and Steel. Carl, you have a good night, man. Thank you for this. You be safe, okay? Bye-bye.